guys, it's Kelly here, and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today is a combination live edited replay part new video. So this is the Steady Water stencil. I used this in my live last week. It's a two-layer stencil, and we did a couple of different ones with it. At the last, when we were doing the third background, one of the viewers said, could we do like a sunset? And so that ended up being the one that looked like it looks pretty cool, honestly. You'll have to let me know what you think. But so that's what we're going to do today, and then we're going to turn it into a finished card. So with the stencil, there's not a lot of real estate at the top for the sky, and I wanted to be able to see the sunset. So I'm actually going to slide my stencil kind of around my cardstock so that the top part of the stencil doesn't cut off my sky, and then I can move it down, and then that's going to remove the beach or the land, and then I'm just going to have water and sky, and honestly, like, I didn't even need to put a boat on this. You could have just put a sentiment on it and it would have been great. So now that I have the stencil there, full disclosure, I did spray this with Pixie spray beforehand, both of them, and it held up through all three stencil applications. I did 3 different backgrounds in the live, and it held up through all 3 of them. Fantastic. So the yellow is where the sun is setting, and then we're going to build out from there out to like that darker blue, yellow to orange to pink to purple to blue. Now, normally when I would be doing a sunset scene, I would be masking off the bottom portion so that the sunset was only in the sky. However, with water, you have that reflection of the colors in the sky. And with this stencil in particular, because it has a detail layer, it means that I don't have to be worried about masking or where that color is going to go. I'm actually going to be able to do this as like a circle, and then add the color all around there. Here, pro tip. So I'm not sure if you can see it, but the bristles are kind of stuck together and kind of like globbed up, and when I run my finger over them, like they stick together. This one does not, and the reason that is because the other one I accidentally used with Distress Oxide, and those are pigment inks. So if you've noticed, like here I'm doing my ink blending, and the ink blending is going down a little bit uneven, and that's because those bristles are not smooth. So if that happens to you, you do have to wash the brush. There's no way to get that kind of, I don't want to call it goopiness, but like that sticky, the way that the bristles are sticking together, there's no way to get it out other than to wash it. That does not happen with the Distress inks because they are dye inks, which means they're water-based, whereas pigment-based, they have I think it's a solvent base. But anyway, so that can cause them to stick together. Anywho, so now I'm doing this, like I said, as a circle, and I can do that because this stencil has a detail layer, and that's going to allow me to put that darkness of the water back in, and still be able to see the sunset. So it's like the reflection of the sunset. So it's actually a really easy stencil to get this look from. And if you guys are new here, I do think with ink blending that you do get the best result when you do it twice. So I worked from that yellow all the way out to the blue. And then from there, I'm going to work my way back in. And this is just going to make sure that I'm going to have lots of really good saturated color. So I worked all the way out to a chipped sapphire. So it's a pretty dark blue, and you can definitely see how at the bottom we're getting more of a water vibe because I'm starting to bring in that blue at the bottom, but also onto the sides. And really, we just want that reflection kind of in the middle. And it is more dramatic if you go darker. It just is. So I worked out to that chip sapphire, and now I'm going to go back in. I normally would do the chip sapphire, what do we use? Prize ribbon, blueprint sketch. either or. And then the salty ocean, but because I was working on a little bit of a time crunch since I was live, I just kind of skipped around a little bit. It still ended up working out okay. I would still, if I had the time, I would go back through all of the colors. So from the chip sapphire, I went to the wilted violet, to the picked raspberry. I'm also, being honest, like, I'm willing to take more liberties with them because I know that the bottom part, I'm going to go over again with the different stencil, so I don't have to be as worried about it. The top part, I was okay for the most part with how it was blending. You can see when I'm going in to these like center colors, these yellow, oranges, pinks, I'm kind of dabbing my brush off onto my glass mat. And that's because I don't have anywhere to bring it in off the edge, and I don't want to have a like a spot where my brush sat. So now that we have the base color done, I'm going to go ahead and remove this stencil, and then I can go in with the detail layer. The detail layer is going to give me that landmass, the little birds, and it's also going to give me details on top of the water. So for the landmass, I do want that to be a bit darker than the rest of the water because it is in shadow, because the sun is behind it. So the landmass is backlit. So I'm trying to use the same colors that I have used in the background, like in the sunset, so that it makes sense. So I started with that Villainous Potion, and then I'm going in with the Chip Sapphire, and then the last color I'll go in with is the Black Soot, so that the edge, that Villainous Potion edge closest to the sun, is the lightest edge, and then it's darker as it gets closer to the water, because the sun would hit the top of that landmass. And I'm also going to use that to get my birds, so that they're in silhouette. You do want to make sure to be careful that you don't go over that top portion and get black in the middle of your sky. You probably would not like that. And then I'm going to turn that mask around so that I can do my ink blending of my water. Now, this probably does look a little bit scary because I'm putting that blue right over that yellow and it's looking very green right now. But that's okay. Hang tight. We're going to be layering colors and it's not going to stay looking green. So I'm going in first with my lightest color, that's that Salty Ocean, and then I'm just going to, it was Prize Ribbon, and then I'm just going to work that out the same way with that kind of halo of color down around the sides and the bottom, so that the lightest portion is the reflection of the sunset, and that's going to create a really nice focal point. So later on in the video, when we turn this into, like when we add the boat and the other elements, we're going to talk some more about shadows and backlighting and kind of easy tricks so that we can do that. If you missed it, the Foundry and Field release is live over on Honeybee's channel, or over on Honeybee's website, and it's a good one. It is. I feel like there's a lot of different things in there. I know one of my favorites is the mechanic set because my son's known from a very early age that he wanted to be a mechanic. And then I love the little cars. They have a muscle car and a vintage bug. So there's lots of stuff in there for all different kinds of avenues that I think we don't normally see in stamping. So now I've worked all the way out to that Salty Ocean. Notice how that no longer looks green, which we love. And then I'm going to go ahead and remove that stencil so that we can see what we're looking like right now. Now, you could absolutely leave it like this. Okay, this is a great background. I have no complaints about the background, but I did want it to be a bit darker. So I honestly, I left it on my grip mat, but honestly, I wish I would have taken it off because it did make it a little bit more difficult to do the ink blending kind of smoothly with adding the black soot. So I love the grip mat for holding the stencils. Don't get me wrong. It's great. That is fantastic. But I think with regular ink blending, I just prefer my glass mat. So I did add a little bit of shadow there. And then at this point, that is when I was done with my live. Now I'm going to bring in this Lovely Layers boat. And then this sentiment set is from a prior release, a Father's Day release, I think. And it's called Hooked on You. And I think that's going to actually work really well with a lot of the fishing elements that have been released with this one. I just liked the font and the sentiments felt like it went with it. And then for the boat, I'm actually going to use a lot of colored cardstock. So I'm going to cut the base out of gray, some of the details out of white, and then the different layers of the boat. I chose several different blues that match the ink blending that we've done. And I can't remember what the name of this one is. I'll have to look it up. I'll link them up below. This one's Cosmic Sky, and the other one is In the Navy. Those ones are really easy for me to remember because I use them all the time. I use them all the time. That one is Passionate Pink, and I'm going to use that for my Life Preserver. And the reason I chose that instead of doing like the more traditional red is because I already have like a pinky purple vibe in my card. So I just wanted to repeat those colors. So here I've kind of I'm trimming everything down so that I can get it through my Scout. And there are some, different parts to this. There's like the little seats and I think some of them are antennas. I think the other ones might be fishing poles. There's a little motor on the back of the boat, but not a complicated die to put together, which honestly I appreciate because, dies are not my forte necessarily. So we had the release of that, and then I'm gearing up for my second part of the series for color theory for card makers. We start the comprehensive color theory for card makers tomorrow. Very excited to see you guys back in class. If you have been on the fence about taking it, bundle's still on sale. It's still available for purchase. You aren't too late. If you decide later on you would like to take it, it'll be a self-paced class, but it'll be there and you have lifetime access. So here, a couple of these parts, you do adhere them behind. So like the motor on the back of the boat, it gets adhered behind these. I'm not a fisher girl, fisher lady, fisher person. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not a fisherman. I have an opportunity to tell my fish story. I mentioned it in the thing and I was like, I don't have time to tell it. And I might have told it before. I can't remember. So, and then they have two little seats. And all of those get glued behind, and then the other layers get glued on the front to create like the pattern of the boat. So I have only ever caught one fish and I was young. How old was I? 15, 16. And the guy that I was seeing at the time, he did like to fish. He wasn't like a crazy fisherman or anything, but he did like to fish. And this is just an indication, I guess, of where I've grown up. There was like a lake that was behind this bar. And so you could go back there and you could go fishing. One of my close friends, when I was in middle school, high school, she was dating the guy I was dating was best friends with the guy she was dating. We didn't set it up like that. It just ended up being that way. And so they had gone back there and gone fishing. And I was like, I've never been fishing. And he was like, would you like to go fishing? And I was like, nah, I would give it a try. So it turns out I'm terrified of the hooks, probably because my sister stepped on one when we were younger. I don't really like that. I didn't want to bait my own hook. Not because of the worms, because of the pokey part of the hook. Wasn't a fan. And then I always had to have a bobber. Like, I couldn't not have a bobber. I needed the bobber because I couldn't understand what was happening without the bobber. And so then we went fishing at this lake behind this bar. And we're out there for however long. I don't think it was very long. It was more in the evening, and I actually caught a fish. I caught this little, and it was like the tiniest little bluegill. And I'm not a fish murderer, okay? Like, my intention was to put the fish back, but I was so excited that I caught the fish. I wanted to show my dad the fish that I caught. So I scooped up this lake water and I put this fish, this is so terrible. I put this fish in a jar so that I could bring him home to show my dad. And then my game plan was to take him back to the lake and set him free. Except he didn't make it. Like, what his injuries were terminal, like they were fatal. Whatever I had done to him. And I should have just thrown him back in the lake to begin with so that he could be with his people. And instead I put him in a jar and I traipsed him all around town so that I could show my dad about the fish I caught. But anyway, I was excited about it, this little bluegill, and in doing so and taking him all over so that I could show my family the fish that I had caught, I effectively murdered him. So that's my one fish I caught story. Good times. All right, let's talk back about the card. So here, the Lifesaver, you can either cut it out of colored cardstock and then add the shading if you choose to. This is the only, well, I mean, I did shade the boat a little bit, a wee little bit. But so here you could just color this in and then you would just avoid those areas that are like traditionally white, or you can cut it out of white like I do with most of my die cuts usually, and then you can do the coloring around those areas, and then you would just leave that cardstock white where you would have that what are those even called? I don't even know. Oh, it's a life preserver, I know that, but what are the white parts called in particular? I have no idea. So then here, if you do the colored cardstock, you can just go back in with a white gel pen and add the white back in. And either way, it's going to look fine. Just go with whichever one you like. I did choose to add a little bit of shading to the white and gray areas here to kind of set them back behind the rest of the boat. I didn't go super dark with the shading because I still wanted I wanted the gray to read as white. But like white that was at sunset, so we'd still have the shadows, you get what I'm saying? So it wouldn't be like a bright white, except for the parts that were on the top that would catch the most light. I was comfortable leaving those white and then just adding the gray shading. And then I'm going to glue on my little life preserver here. Now here's where my boat's sitting. I'm happy with the way that that's looking. Everything is very matchy-matchy, and you know how I feel about that. So here is a little trick that you can use if you want to do a shadow of an object, but you are not confident in your ability to draw its opposite. You can flip your die cut upside down and then trace it very lightly with a pencil. Something to know, when you put alcohol ink over a pencil, you cannot erase it. So you do have to make sure that your shadow is dark enough to cover up that pencil, or you need to take your line right up to the pencil and then erase it before you go completely over the line. And then that'll give you an outline to just go in with your grays and fill in. Now, if you are a big scaredy cat like me, you can go in with your lightest color first. So I started with a C3. This is not a dark gray at all. So I started with the C3 so that I could go in there and just kind of map everything out and make sure that I was going to be okay with where it was sitting before I went in with the much darker color. But this item is directly in front of the sun, so it's going to have a pretty clear shadow. It's going to be really sharp is what I mean. So you're not going to have like a lot of fuzzy edges or elongation because it's coming at it from an angle. Like, this boat is directly in front of our light source, and consequently its shadow will be directly in front of that, and it will not be skewed. So now, once I'm okay with my shadow, I went from a C3 to a C5, because again, I'm scared. I'm a little bit scared. I do get a little bit apprehensive going in with just the dark color right away, but thankfully these lighter colors give me a little bit of leeway, to go in and kind of work up to it, because let's be honest, it is much easier to work up to it when you have a little bit of a lighter color. So now there isn't anything wrong with that particular shadow. It's okay. But it's not, it's not as dark as it should be for it to match like the landmass and everything else that we have colored. So here, I'm all the way up to a C7 now, and I just did the whole thing solid. And then I'm just double checking it as I'm going, and I'm like, yeah, that's good. I'm good with that. And then I did go over it another time, like another layer of color. So I'm out of glue, guys. My honeybee glue, I'm completely out, and so I have to order some more, but in the meantime, I'm back to the old standby Tombow Mono Multi Glue. So I glued that down. For the sentiment, I am going to do some white heat embossing on that navy cardstock. And I chose the one that says, take time to enjoy the simple things in life. I feel like that's really very fitting for what we've got going on here. And also, if you don't have the boat, but you do have like the stencil, you could use the same sentiment. It's a very pretty, like, scene card with just the stencil. You don't have to add anything else to it. Or you could do this as a sunrise and make this, it a little bit lighter instead of, so dark, but use those same colors. The reason that it's popping so much is because we have that cool color with the warm colors, and they create quite a bit of contrast, which is very pretty to look at. So there, I just went ahead and attached that flat. I'm going to add some highlights with my white gel pen, kind of anywhere like that the light would be touching along the top of the boat. And then here, I wanted to add a little bit of to accent the sentiment and kind of fill that space up a little bit. And I just went with the rainbow rhinestones. This was like, they match everything. And you guys know how I feel. That's why I use Stardust stickles, because it matches everything. So I put down my little glue dots, and then I put on my little rainbow rhinestones. I did add some shimmer to anywhere the light touches, a la Lion King. But you do want to make sure that if you want to add shimmer to the ink blending, that you are very conscientious of the direction that you're going and what you're touching, because Distress ink is it's dye ink. It will reactivate with any sort of moisture, so you can totally smear your stenciling if you're not careful. And then that's it. That's the whole card. So I'm super happy with the way it came out. I hope this inspires you guys to use your stencils a little bit differently and try some different ways to ink blend. Thank you again so much for spending your time with me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.